Kaluma didn't just make statements. Kaluma planned, Kaluma premeditated, Kaluma executed the threats. What you saw going viral was not meant to go viral. It was a meeting that they sat and planned. He had called the drivers of all transports, whether name it, whether Probox or whichever kind of transport. He called in his home all the picky guys, and upon leaving Kaluma's place, like over 2,000 pickies entered town executing what they had been asked to do. So Kaluma is not just an inciter. He literally sat down and carefully planned this. Actually, if you passed Homa Bay, everybody was being asked, is Brian Weke or Babo Wino in the car? I have been in this game for long. You don't do this. You do not do this. You know, when we were, forget about the small areas where they had planned goons. Now, when we were entering Homa Bay town, they had the first team of around 1,000 youths who were armed with firearms. They were armed with tear gas. They were armed with machetes. They were armed with stones. So when we breached that barricade, because our resolve to enter town, nothing was going to stop us. We met the police in their numbers. And
so the police were there?
They were there. And we asked them, what is happening? Why aren't you protecting us? The police who died is because when we breached that group, they ran to the bush and they came behind. That's when now they were touching our cars. Now, the police who died, they were throwing stones at us, but we had already breached that particular barricade.
Police were throwing stones?
So now we reached the police.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So they thought they were hitting us. That is when now the police actually had to defend themselves, and we repulsed them and we entered town. Fred, I've never seen anything like this. I have been in this politics for a while. We've been with Mutambo in this game. It doesn't really. It's not supposed to reach here.
In that same area, there was a by-election in Kasipul, and there were cases of violence as well. Are we saying that this has gone a notch higher, that the level of violence is getting...
Not a notch higher. Mm-hmm. This has gotten to alarming proportions. Because you have goons armed with firearms, with tear gas canisters, and the police are seated and watching. And we actually spoke to a number of, a number of these police officers are sympathetic to us. They know what we are doing. They said they were given instructions not to interfere.
Okay.
They were given instructions not to respond. And at this particular time, I want to say this without fear of contradiction. Kaluma ought to be arrested, not just for insightful words, for planning and executing these murders. And these numbers you're seeing, 2 people died. Fred, there are so many people who died.
Right.
As we speak, you're not even allowed to go to the mortuary to confirm people who are dead. We've been talking to the attendants, and the numbers are quite high.
Okay.
Kaluma and our governor have actually killed a number of our children, which is very, very unfortunate.
Okay. The front page of the Standard lays the blame squarely on these 3 people, the CS Interior, PS Interior, and Police IG. The PS, Raymond Omolo, had issued had given an assurance a few days earlier that nothing would happen. He comes from the same county. Are you saying that from your own account and from your discussions with police, that reluctance to intervene was actually by design, that they got instructions not to?
It was an order. They were instructed not to interfere. Because let me ask you, Fred, there were a number of police, over 100 police officers. If they wanted to disperse a crowd of 1,000 people, they would have done it long before we checked in. They just sat behind that crowd of 1,000 youths who were waiting for us. And they did nothing. until now they were being attacked. Because when these guys were attacking us, after we had breached them, we had now reached the police. And that's how a police officer died.
Right.
Fred, let me ask him, because he was right there. Did you lodge a report with the police?
We did.
You have?
We have. Our
Because
council on the ground.
Yes.
A number of your cars were torched.
A number of cars were torched. A number of our people were maimed. No car left that scene. We had around 150 or 200 cars. No car left that scene without a dent.
Because
And all this was reported to the police.
The point that I
Yes, we
wanted
did.
him to clarify to the Kenyan people is this: a crime or crimes actually were committed. The arson, that's the attacks on the cars, the malicious damage, and the assault and whatever it is. If you do have those OBs, then you do have an entry point with the IPOA, such that now the police have failed to investigate these crimes. But if it happens, and like everybody closes the book and goes off and will come on shows or wherever it is in the public domain, and we say that, you saw what happened, you did. But if we do follow up, then we hold these officials, we hold these police officers to account, because there is a legitimate complaint under the law. Remember, under the National Police Service Act, if you do not lodge a complaint against which the police can investigate, you have nothing to hold them to account.
Is that part of the failure that probably some of these cases?
That's what I wanted to ask him.
We've gotten to a point where we assume
So we can move forward.
acts of goonism are common, and in any political arrangement or rivalry, they will be there. We do not report. Could that be part of the problem? Did you report this to the police? As there are records with the police that yes, these crimes were committed?
Of course. As I've told you, our counsel on the ground is called Nyauke. He went to the police station and reported.
Okay, so there's a record to that.
But
I know there's that feeling of helplessness.
No, you see, the point that I'm making is very important. It's very important, because even if the council goes to court, to the police, and he says that, our vehicle or whatever was torched, the act of arson relates to a particular motor vehicle. The registered owner must lodge the complaint, and the person assaulted must lodge the complaint. Otherwise, then the police will say, this is a faceless sort of complainant, and therefore you will give them a pass. So we must be more proactive.
Yes. So from what we've seen so far with the acts of goonism that we've witnessed across the country, not just in Homa Bay, is that the greatest weakness, that we've gotten to a point where we're just lethargic about the law? We do not report this because we've seen it as something normal as we head towards the next election. No one is reporting this.
And I think also it goes with their planning. I'm not involved in political rallies. But if I were there, I would have so-called a wing that for me is like a guard. And you have to document that they are out there. Their sole object is to document any incident of such intrusion into our political meeting, in this sense. That if you do see these goons, do we capture their faces? Can we follow them? And some of these goons are actually captured, like in All-Kalau, who are able then to speak forth. And that's the difference between now what is happening and All-Kalau. Because All-Kalau, there's a politician called Kawanjiko. His vehicle was actually,
But those are video records. And Wakili, because I'm looking at where does it become a crime and where do the police come in, and actually this matter is taken a step further.
Allow me to finish that point. Because you see, if Brian says here, there were vehicles torched, we saw that. But if the person's motor vehicle that was torched, that's an act of arson, does not complain himself or herself to the police, where does that leave us, we who are against that sort of attack? And then you give a pass to the state and they who are sponsors of this state terror or, the goonism. Because then they feel that we can get away because our people can't faces. But Brian, I would challenge you. They who are armed with bows and arrows, and we see them on social media or at least even in the news, why can they go and report that these are people who are violating the law?
What we are witnessing today is disobedience of the law. And I will not say by the police alone. I said by Kenyans. Many Kenyans do not respect the law. either you are in the government or you are in opposition, you would see people behave in a manner as if this country is a banana republic, right? We have seen in several occasions, and we also need to understand this, even the police are human beings. We have seen people threaten the police. We have seen.
One of those who died is a police officer.
We have seen. We have seen police getting killed. So, would a police kill a police, or would a police kill himself? He is being killed by a person who is opposed to them. It's a simple logic. So, when such a thing happens, and when death occurs, definitely the police will bounce in and they will act.
Are you
the question
that they did not do this?
The question is, and I'm not a police officer, although I've done a little bit criminal law. When somebody commits a crime like murdering a person, and that person either vanishes within the crowd or is not there, would the police camp all those people and arrest? If you arrest all those people, Kinyanjui will be in court tomorrow and saying, my client, my client, my client. So they must have tangible evidence that it is...
Bwana Mutambo, there's an obvious case here of incitement. And the person is not...
Are we talking about the action or the incitement?
Both.
For me, I'm calling, if somebody incite Kenyans, that is a crime. That person needs to be arrested.
All right. Does it disturb you that Peter Kaluma is still working?
Kaluma should be arrested.
I am saying if somebody, either Kaluma, Mutambo, Kinyanjui, Weke, it doesn't classify
but
that it must be so and so.
Free as we speak.
Right. As it is right now, Brian Weke, Peter Kaluma is free.
You know, I listened to Kinyanjui, and he's arguing very well like an advocate, which is a good thing. You know, even before the rally, all these meetings that were used to plan for all this chaos, we reported to the police. Even before the rally, our advocate, who's coordinating things on the ground, his building was attacked, and we went and reported. Nothing happened. You know, I don't know, these goons were planned by the state, including a police officer was killed, including many other police officers were maimed. So this story of reporting is just a procedural thing.
That sense of helplessness, I'm worried about it, because now we're heading towards an election. We're hoping for a solution here. It is a problem that...
the solution has to be curbed by the state. But the problem is that the state is sponsoring violence. It is a state that is arming these young people. It is a state that is coordinating this attack. It is a state, and I want to say this as a lawyer without fear of contradiction. Because what we saw, we spotted all these things. There was a meeting somewhere at the border of Mbita. They brought in everywhere we were going, they held meetings to plan against us. And we reported. But I can tell you for a fact, the police on the ground, their hands are tied.
But the question is it wrong for me to hold meeting in my house or anywhere? Do I have also that freedom to call people as a politician to either my home or my town? Or is it a crime? So when Kinyanjui is holding meeting in his home and I go to report to the police, what do I want the police to do at that particular moment? To go and ask whether that meeting is licensed? I don't need a license to invite anybody in my house. I don't need. Okay,
it's a political season, yes.
As per the law, okay, because it's my house and I can invite guests to have a meal or whatever. So at that point, when I go and say Kinyanjui is holding a meeting in his house, what do I expect the police to do? That is number one. Number two, when he asked, is there any formal report? Because the police will not just go in the street and start arresting anybody because Brian made a report that there is a car which has been touched. There must be particulars. So that if the police are going for any witness, they know the owner of the car, who will stand in court and say, this was my car and it was touched. Brian will go there and put his statement and say, I was there, I saw. You build a case. A police will not just go and start arresting people. He has no witness. He has not compiled his case. He has done nothing. He will face Kinyanjui and Weke actually. They will go there and say, no, my client has not done this and there is no proof to link them with whatever happened. Yes, something happened. But how sure are we that it is him? Because there is nothing at all, either reported or produced to the police for them to take action. And that's why I told you, it becomes a crime the moment a crime has been committed, and for the police to act now, there must be that witnesses. There must be those who saw what happened. And the problem is that those who saw what happened, they don't report as it happened.
You must plan. We will be having this rally. And because you've seen how the state-sponsored Goonism is operating, and you have your people on the ground ready also to capture whatever is going on by way of evidence.
Your own people, or to capture the evidence?
No, yeah, absolutely.
Not to protect yourself.
To protect yourself, but to protect yourself, I don't mean
that would be fanning the violence.
No. To protect yourself, I don't mean that. Well, self-defense is allowed under the law. You don't mean that someone will come and attack and punch you as you watch, just like that. But the point that I'm making to them is you must arrange. If I were involved in the political rallies, one of the things that I would say that, look, there is no journalist who will come right there and get harmed by these so-called goons, because they are capturing and they have backup. Same thing that I'll repeat, the Okalau experience is a blueprint that everybody else ought to follow, in my humble view. Because now those so-called sponsored goons were cornered in a way. And NTV, your media, competing station, has captured all of that. And so I'm wondering, if you have seen this is how the state is doing, do you have that as your backup plan to gather the evidence? Now, let me finally say this. If the state has failed, right now you can see, right here, there's an act of arson. There is an owner to this vehicle, registered owner, registered with the NTSA. So the moment they produce that evidence and the state fails to act, the police, they have a remedy. You go and sue the state for this loss. That's how the Attorney General is sued on behalf of the state.
Counsel James Orengo said
we go to every single part of this country without protection, without the police, without all these machinations. And we walk in and we speak to our supporters. Whether you're asking whether we feel like we want to protect ourselves, the answer is yes. What we saw on Sunday.
How will you protect yourselves?
No, I'm saying, if you're asking whether we need to protect ourselves.
Do you find the necessity to have self-defense mechanisms?
You know.
And what kind of shape would that self-defense mechanism take?
No, you see, the person who protects individuals, if you look at the Constitution, is the police service.
They've obviously failed.
Yeah. So, clearly, they have to step up. I know what you want me to say.
No. I'm asking because I know is the police that will replicate.
The police of this country, the police service needs to step up. All these stories Kinyanjui is saying, you need to report, there's an answer. All those things have been done. That law you're talking about is on paper. Is a good, in Kenya here, one of the key things that we have is very good pieces of legislation. And I know Kinyanjui wants to fault reporting. Reporting has been done. We have documented all these things. Let me tell you, there is no political formation that is good at documentation like Linda Mwananchi. All those faces, we have them. All those faces, we took them. All those faces were reported, including others who were arrested, and orders came from above and they were released, even without cash bail. So these are very good stories of how the law has been crafted. Yes. Implementation is a big challenge, because without the police, how do you implement?
Yeah.
When you say, I'm organizing this meeting without any security, without the police, first and foremost, the crowd you are inviting are not your brothers and sisters, are mixed. And the work of the police is to protect not only those who are allied to the government, but any Kenyan. So if you ignore the police and you say, I don't want police in my meeting, Kenyans are mixed. There are others who don't come to the meeting to listen to you. There are those who come to the meetings because that is their payday. Okay? And they would want to do any kind of things. My good friend here is a victim of those people who gather around whatever is happening to do other things. Like snatching your phone, pickpocketing you. It happens. And when there is no police, when the organizers have made it very clear that there are no police required here, so those people who are there with a different opinion or with a different mentality, they will do whatever they want to do, and the chaos may erupt. You may see a chaos whereby people are fighting. I was in a meeting somewhere. Somebody collapsed in that meeting. Then there was an issue. No, he has been hit by this, blah, 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 blah. Then the fight starts. There was no goons who were brought in there, but there were chaos. So the chaos erupted. What I'm saying is that the organizers, the leaders, and that's why I go back to the leaders, are the one who are responsible for anything happening to any Kenyan. Because if I organize a meeting, or if I carry with my car and I drive carelessly, I'm charged with careless driving. Likewise, if you drive a meeting without proper security arrangements, then you are putting...
By security, you say police.
Yes, I'm talking about the police, because the work of the police is to protect both.
Okay.
Those people who are attending, the leaders themselves, it is their work. Police is paid to protect Weke, is paid to protect Mutambu. It's not paid to protect only one man.
What happens in cases where police stay away? Like in this case, they are there but not fail to act. On that issue about self-defense, because I'm seeing something forming here, that politicians will now intentionally ensure their own protection.
And when someone stands on the rooftop of a vehicle and sees, and he's very proud, very arrogant, because he knows he wants to use the state machinery. If I were them, I would be there camping before the NCIC and saying that you have to implement the law. This is your domain.
Okay.
So when you find out the necessity to protect yourself, you have to question, when will this end? It's unlikely to end, because you have a desperate political front that is out there to entrench itself and to preserve power. And you heard what one Farouk Kibet was saying, in the public domain. And you, as the other side, competing for political power, and political competition should never ever be equated with the assertion of the political master for violence, that we can exert more violence. And for them, if I were them, I would say, because you're going to have a political rally and you have notified the police, and then you demand that police, the responsible person under the Public Order Act, they should then respond to you and assure you that yes, we will get the security that we need, so that if there is failure, and this is how I'm saying, the chain of documentation must be there. If there is failure, it is that person that you will hold to account, take them to our power, have them removed.
Wakili, is it criminal to have a group protecting you as a politician away from the police? That's what I'm asking, because we are seeing cases where politicians are finding it necessary now to have groups around them. Is it criminal? Is it against the law?
It is not, strictly speaking, criminal. It is not, strictly speaking, because you can get private security, as it were, to guard and to protect you. It happens. Okay. We have bodyguards. It is not criminal. What then will happen? And I think this is what the trigger that the political establishment wants, such that there can be violence. Remember, and let me repeat what I said, there are voices and murmurs underneath, the undercurrents, that they do not want to have the election in 2027. And so they need this desperately to have a justification. And if you do have now the confrontation between the police force and your private security, then you have given them what they want.
All right. God save.
Fred, we went to every police station where we're going to have any single stop and gave notice, very long time notice. And we said we will be having our rally on the 16th. And we have, they received our letter and they stamped, we have a stamped copy, because I know Kenyanjui likes following the law. When we got wind of all these plannings, you know, it is only these leaders who are in two-term. The common man who struggles, the common man who suffers, the person from Homa Bay who wakes up every morning to get a living, they know what they're going through. Every single meeting that they had, there was somebody recording. And not one person. There were so many. And with those recordings, we still went back. And I held a press conference 2 days with our party leader, James Orengo, and mentioned these series of meetings. What did we do? We still went ahead because Kinyanjui likes following written law. And we went to the police and reported and said, on this day, there was a meeting here. On this day, there was a meeting at the stadium. On this day, there was a meeting at Kaluma's office, Kaluma's house. There is another one that was done at Kaluma's, and these were discussed. These are the recordings. On this day, there was a hotel at the border of Suba South and Suba North where they held a meeting, and we gave details plus recordings. What is being done? Zero. Now let me tell you, Fred, it is not us to provide security. The Constitution is very clear that the only organ that is supposed to offer security is the Kenya Police Service. And our role as responsible citizenry is to report and give a notice that we will be coming to hold a meeting. Now, as I've told you, the police knew, the police planned themselves, the police turned out in large numbers. But guess what? They just did nothing. Now, I have been here in this country. I was there in 2007. And I'm telling you, the drums of war in this election are way louder than 2007. The state which is supposed to curb these issues is funding. The state that is supposed to curb these issues is funding. The state that is supposed to curb these issues is arming. I can tell you for a fact, the way we are going, 2007 will be a joke. Because, and this is being done all over the country. And what I'll agree with Kinyanjui, that all these things are planned for purposes of creating violence so that the next election can be rigged. There are no numbers on the ground. If you look at the statistics, they are not working. Whatever they are doing, nothing seems to be happening. So what have they done? They have resulted into violence. They want to win this election through violence. And I can tell you for a fact, where we are going as a country, this will be the most violent elections you'll ever see.
That's what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah. Could I beg Brian, just very quickly so I can think about him. Could I beg him, please? Because having heard him, that they did everything within the book, and maybe 10 others outside the book, that's all very well. But if I were involved in this sort of thing, I would go and take a petition for the removal of that PS. Because he has failed. Because if he assures you that we will have security and he doesn't provide that security, and all these acts happen when he's watching, under his watch, I would have taken also a petition for the removal of the CS. I would have taken a petition for the removal of that IG. This is not a joke.
Do you think this would be the solution?
No. I'm saying, let me document. Let me do it. Let the members of parliament, who are also victims of that, who are going to an election with this sort of scenario, fail the Kenyan people. So that every Kenyan person can know, you are the one in parliament that failed me. We took a petition to you to remove these persons because of incompetence, because of fostering an environment of insecurity, of murder, of arson, and of every chaotic scenario that we have in our political platforms. It is unacceptable. So I would challenge them. Let us go that further step. Let's not just voice and say, hold press conferences and saying that this is what happened. I document it. Let us take it to Parliament, the institution that is supposed to remove them by law. Now, if there's failure, then we say, you had the opportunity to do it. You failed us. We can't go to an election with this sort of scenario. Let us all agree that we need a peaceful environment for the democratic expression of the voice of the Kenyan people. And if the Kenyan people have rejected a regime, that regime has no right to impose itself using violence against the will of the Kenyan people. It has to come to a stop. And the head, they who are in the political front, must lead that. Not just say that I reported, and then what? If we have these piled up reports and they are not being acted upon, then there is an institutional failure at every front in the security organs.
And we are in agreement with that.